Guys, we are back. Foundation Season 2, Episodes 2 and 3. Luke, Kyle, of course, Kyle, we're going to start with you, and I'm bringing it back. What do you do? Go.
These were some interesting episodes in where, and these might be words that I choke back as we go through this, but it felt like there was maybe less theorizing stuff for us, and it was mostly my experience felt like I was just enjoying maybe new characters
Mm-hmm.
than maybe any of like the very significant plot movements as I like sit here and try to run through a bullet list of what happened off the top of my head. That's what it felt like these were, which is totally fine. I mean, it's a good start to season 2. We really enjoyed last episode. These two just kind of continued to be this setup towards their advertising, maybe this conflict, some type of war that's going to happen. Different people will play different parts. Some of them it seems like we've just met, maybe some we won't have even met yet. So just kind of enjoying the ride.
Yeah, I totally feel you there. This is definitely a show where, to me, it has been getting better and better. I agree with you. There's not much I can theorize on right this minute, especially with the big reveal at the end of episode 3. I can tell you right now, I can say this with all honesty, that I would have bet so much money that we would never have seen Harry in physical form again. So I was not expecting that whatsoever. I'm very intrigued by how that is going to come about. It does seem like in these 2 episodes, they are going to lean a little bit into, they call Polly and the other brothers magicians, but what I mean is the telepathy and seeing the future and the seeing the past, a little bit of a supernatural kind of aspect. But of course, we can get into that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. There's a lot to talk about. So let's just get right into it.
Yeah, so these 2 episodes, we have by far the most planet hopping scenes. So it's going to be more bucketed, probably more similar to our normal coverage, but I'm going to try and keep us on track. We're going to start with all of the Gale stuff because that's what Kyle decided to pick. So you guys are saying though there's not really too much to theorize on. I can disagree on a big part of this first episode we got because the whole first episode of these 2 is the direct aftermath of of the pilot of season 2, where we had Harry finally coming out, freaking out at everything. Of course, he's super mad at what Gale did. We have their reconciliation, if you want to call it that, where they actually talk everything out. They discuss the second foundation. They really talk about his plans. Sal gets a feel for what this Harry's like, and actually their relationship and how there's been turmoil, but there's been successes, and she's just trying to just figure out what's really going on. And it all ends in what I think is one of the things I thought about the most coming out of these 2 episodes, which is that crazy vision we get from Gale. That there's a lot to talk about there, but we're going to break some of that down because I even have things that are future seasons for me, which I'm assuming we're going to be getting in season 3, 4, 5, however long the show ends up going. But there's some end game level things here that we're not going to revisit this season, but will be very fun to talk about. We get some just predictions on the board is going to be a fun thing for us to do here. So let's just start there. Like, what did we think? Did we think that Harry was overreacting? I never really thought about the idea that he was consciously awake for that 138 years just sitting there, and he kind of deserves to be mad at Gale. So what do you guys think?
I get what Harry's saying, man. She locked him up, and we know what he was saying in the previous episodes. The other Harry was saying that it would not be good to be by yourself for that long, and we know it was not good at all for him. And it basically almost drove him mad, and he deserves to freak out at Gale. And I liked Gale's response. She didn't know, but Harry does throw some ownage at Gale in this episode, and everything she says, he's basically coming back at her, right? Her and Sal are saying, should we go to the Foundation to help? And he's like, that's what Foundation 2 was for, and you screwed that over. And, basically right back at them, very, very frustrated with Gale, not necessarily Sal, but you don't want Harry on your bad side, but it does seem like they talked it out. And while Gale still isn't homies with him, she's come to a certain understanding where
They're in a much better place now.
Yeah, she's more sympathetic to what she did to him, of course, because she didn't know that she was going to do that. But yeah, it is interesting to see Sal's viewpoint because, we have the whole scenario where Sal is very much so looking at her mom, trying to build a relationship with her mother, and it's tough. There's not much there right now. They're really trying to find something, find some common ground between each other. And she sees Harry and Gail. And whether this is a little bit of a hostile relationship right now that's hopefully going to mend, and we can see it start to mend a little bit. Sal's probably looking at that like, this is a father-daughter kind of relationship here. And she kind of brings that up in episode 3. So she's looking at that with maybe a little bit of envy, but she also probably feels like she's the outsider with the two of them because, like she says, they speak their own language. They speak to each other in a certain way. They understand each other. And Sal is looking at this like, I'm having a tough time with my own mother.
I think Harry had every right to be upset. We got a glimpse of it in the first episode of what it was like for him, and then multiply that by 134 years or whatever it ended up being. I mean, I think anybody in their right mind, and he's clearly not even in his right mind, would be upset about something like that. I don't know how to think about him having a physical body, because again, even Gail kind of says at the end of episode 3, looking at Kale or whatever that, the construct formerly known as Kale or whatever the heck's going on there, of like, what are you? And I feel like I'm more at a point of, we'll just have to watch and find out. I have little to no idea of what that is. Again, it feels like maybe a mechanism that we're just completely not aware of.
Yeah. And for anybody who has been listening to our coverage, and we're kind of using these terms, hoping that you listen to our dark matter coverage, we have the soft side and the hard side, meaning, again, of course, the explainable versus the, hey, just kind of deal with it, we're doing this kind of conversation. And to your point, Luke, when it comes to theories, yeah, I could definitely throw some theories, and there is some theory talk to be had about the vision and everything like that. But more to Kyle's point, it's one of those things where at this moment, I'm like, do I even have enough information to give you a very logical, rational theory that I feel comfortable with? Because are we in a scenario here where Harry and Gail go on this journey? Gail gets left by Harry. Harry goes inside and closes the door with the Prime Radiance version of whatever being they want to be, leaves Gail behind, and then shows up with a human form. And is there a science reason to explain how this is going to happen, or is it going to be more supernatural? I'm leaning obviously towards supernatural here. We know that his physical body broke into pieces and created the vault. if that's another science thing or another supernatural thing we want to talk about. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely theories to be had. It's just tough because we don't really have too much information on how this is happening. It's just, hey, here we go. We got a physical body.
Yeah, I guess I am more focusing on the vision itself, because that is, anytime I'm thinking about Gail or Sal right now, it's that scene, because I think Gail is such a badass. Like the way she comes up and strategizes around plans, and then she just puts them into play right away. Like even thinking back to when they were on Synax, she figures out what they're going to do with how they're going to resurface the ship. She's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, let's go. And Sal's like, oh my God, like right now. And the same idea kind of happens here, where after they escape Synax with Harry's help, the reconciliation happens. They're going to decide where they're going next. She wants to figure out what this vision of the future is. And she realizes that I think it's that the next crisis is going to be like 150 years in the future. So she fails to manually pull off a vision, and she realizes that if she puts herself into a life or death situation, it could happen. And she just instantly just kills all the air. I thought that was just like so badass the way she did that.
Yeah.
Throws Sal the oxygen so she's not going to die or anything. But when this vision happens, and we're going to loop in the very end of the episode too, where the whole thing, like we're not going to act like it's a secret that Sal is at the place where she meets the mule. This whole thing's crazy because you see a bunch of things. Like there's clearly it's a war zone. Bunch of people are dying. It's chaotic, right? And then we see this character who's actually been flashing multiple times throughout the season or two, and has been mentioned multiple times at least. And I have something I do want to bring up specifically about the mule, but he is such a badass that he is aware that her past self is viewing him in the future, because he also has some sort of psychological or whatever you want to call it, sci-fi fantasy abilities. We can talk about that all we want, but he's out here just trying to murder Gale, Gale, who has at this time 150 years in the future what he calls her mentalics. So you can assume that's like an army, and he's looking for the location of the second foundation. So a lot is going on here, but I just think that this is ripe for theory talks, because he even mentions the age of the empire, which almost implies that the empire is going to be fallen, and maybe there's no day, dawn, and dusk 150 years in the future when this next crisis is. So a lot of the shit that's going down here, like, it's really cool, especially upon a rewatch, because I don't know if you guys remember this, but all the way back in, I believe it's the first scene of the pilot, before you even know who Gale is, she's narrating over the whole story, and she name drops first Salvor Hardin, which you end up meeting that episode. Then she says Hober Mallow, which you meet this episode, and then she mentions the mule all the way back in line 1 of episode 1, which is so freaking cool, because that would have never been something you guys clocked or remembered, at least. And now we're starting to really flesh out some of the, what I'm assuming is like end game players, because we're talking 150 years in the future. Like, I don't even have this information. I'm assuming season 3 will start touching on some of this stuff, but this vision did a lot with a little bit of time, and then it ends up freaking Gale out to the point where she lies to Sal about the fact that she's going to die there. And we have yet to see Gale have a vision that didn't come completely true. So what did you guys, anything else that you wanted to bring up specifically for that vision?
Anytime we have a scenario in television or movies, any kind of entertainment where there's visions and you're determining whether it's going to logically A to B come true, or if you're going to try to change the future. It's so freaking interesting, because now we have this scenario where, like you said, Gale sees Sal dead, and Gale kept that to herself for a little bit, and then she finally reveals it, and we have a scenario where Sal outwardly is taking it pretty well. She's like, hey, if I get to live 150 more years, or if, we're talking something 150 years in the future, Gale, if I'm in battle and I die trying to save the universe, I'm good. And Gale's like, come on, really? And Sal's really just like, hey, I'm fine. Gale's taking it to heart more so than Sal at this moment outwardly. But it's so interesting to have a scenario where we're seeing where things are going to go. Are they going to be fully prophesized where it's going to be Sal dying in that exact way? Or will they have a scenario where they can change the future? And Harry talks about it and is pretty logical, like he always is. And he's saying, you guys, freaking mainly you, Gale, are focusing on one individual, and you're going to try to stop one individual's death versus how it's going to affect civilization. We're talking about psychohistory, which is, history based on the civilizations and what could happen in the future. You're trying to find, or you found one individual's future and you want to change it.
I like the quote, there are infinite ways to arrive at the inevitable. I think that would give me a little comfort too. If I was Sal, I mean, Sal, like Jimmy said, is kind of like, cool. Like, all right. Like, I honestly have never felt more alive, and that I know I'm not going to die right now. Like, I'll make it at least to that point. So,
you know what it's like, Kyle? You seen the fortune cookie episode of Rick and Morty?
It's not immediately ringing a bell.
Oh, it's one of the best episodes, but essentially the fortune cookies come true no matter what. And so Rick gets one that says, you will make a best friend. And so he refuses to like be friends with anybody. So that means he's invincible until that happens. And then of course, Jerry's like, oh, you're my best friend. And then he's like, fuck you, Jerry. All this thing happens, takes away your shield. So Gale or Sal pretty much has a free pass, almost like a plot shield until this happens.
Yeah, and the other thing I was gonna say too is that, I mean, anyone that's ever played Fortnite knows the power of the third party. So, or Apex, any battle royale team-based game. Not crazy that if it's Foundation and Empire are kind of the main event of a struggle in the future, it's not insane that there would be other people that would then take advantage of that situation and kind of grab power on their own. So I'm not entirely surprised that is this, let's call them at this point, the third party. We don't entirely know anything about him beyond being anti-Foundation. I'm obviously at some level making an assumption that he's anti-Empire as well. And that just, I mean, again, is going to add an interesting wrinkle to what we are feeling like. And they're really showing us is this inevitable war that's going to happen. I mean, that seems pretty wild that would be the second crisis, would be the Mule and the Vision. Because then they mentioned that the third one was going to be even bigger.
The second is the one happening currently, right? Like about to happen between the Empire and Foundation. So that would be 3, right?
I think
three
so.
would
the
be
Mule
the
is
Mule.
3.
Right. At least, I mean, I believe right now crisis number 2 is Empire versus the Foundation. And something that I need some clarification on here. What is Hober Mallow's connection to the Vision?
So we don't know that yet, but the line that he says is, "Oh, you're from the age of the Empire," when he's talking to Gale in the past, and he says before Hober Mallow pierced inside or something like that. Like it's something like that. What does it say it again?
It's hide, like it's skin.
Yeah, pierce the Empire's hide. Kyle, is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Which,
but at
of
this
course,
point,
we're going.
Nobody knows who he is, like on that ship.
Right. And everybody drink. I said this is interesting 13 times already this episode, so I'm interested. Everybody drink, quote unquote. Everybody drink. But Hober Mallow, we're going to get into. I'm trying to get you guys hammered for this episode. Luke's taking a drink right now.
Yeah.
Why not? So I'm very, very excited about the fact that we have these visions from Gale. And like you said, Luke, there's rewatch value where Hober Mallow and the Mule are dropped in episode 1. And we have no idea what we're even watching or hearing. And they're coming back into play. And now we finally have Hober Mallow, and I'm seeing this vision, and he's brought up, and he doesn't seem like someone specifically looking to pierce the veil or pierce the hide of Pierce the Veil. Is that a band? Pierce the hide of the Empire. So we're going to get all of this character development. We know what the end is apparently, but we haven't seen this character development yet. And we're just introduced to a character that I really think I'm going to like.
Oh, he's the man. And just while we're talking about that, I was just cracking up at Holt McCallany just dying.
Dude,
and I knew that's when you guys are talking about him, like, oh, they're never going to bring him on for a small role. It's too big of a name. And I'm sitting here thinking, I remember Joel on the floor when I watched it the first time, that I was just waiting for you guys to see it. But we'll save that for a little bit, because we did get so many new character introductions these 2 episodes that I think they're all big players besides Holt, and he was introduced last episode. But yeah, like the Mule is going to be the face of like a looming threat, I think, for a while. I like his little glasses he's got going on. I like the fact that he seems more aware and is like almost as big of a threat as to Empire in that one scene he became in my head, just because he seems to have an army at his back that's willing to do anything to crush and kill and find Gale and the Foundation. And the takeaway from the division is that after Gale wakes up, she got a glimpse into his mind as well, but she knows that the second Foundation is on a planet called Igni, and now everybody knows that. And that's kind of where the episode ends. And I know I just kind of cut you off if you want to throw more things at the Vision, but because the next direct things that happen is what we already started dancing around, which is Planet Una, that Callie was pulling Harry's AI version towards. So
right. And the last things I'll say about the Vision, we see it twice, obviously. We see it the first time without the Sal reveal, and then we see it the second time with the Sal reveal. And when I was watching the Vision, and honestly, I rewound and I saw it twice, of course, within the same episode. And I'm still not going to say this is not what I thought I saw. When the Mule shoots at Gale and she goes flying, it is obviously like rocks exploding, but I swear when I was first watching this Vision, I thought she exploded and that was showing us like her death or something. Like I literally saw it. It was like boom, and I was like, wait a second, did this just happen? Did this actually just happen? It really does look like that. And then of course they show her on the ground, And then they have their conversation, and then the reveal is that she looks over and sees Sal dead.
And
So
the mule was able to actually hurt her through the vision. Like she has the neck mark in the past
right,
now, which is so
right.
cool.
Yes, so that's very cool. We have a scenario where this mule 150 years in the future knows if someone is looking into his present, if that's how you want to say it, and can affect the past with his powers apparently.
So yeah, let's just talk about what we've already been talking about. If you have any other thoughts, because when they do arrive on this planet, it is just to me a knockoff Arrakis from Dune, where they're even talking about the deserts and the mining of the resources, all that. It felt like a wink to the Dune series. But I do like anytime we get a new planet in this series because they every single one looks so distinct, and we get more later in this episode. But it's a pretty straightforward story here, and like you guys said, I don't know how much we can theory craft here, but at the end of the day, the resolution of this planet is that Harry now has his biological body back. We don't know what that means. We don't know how that happened. We don't know if the Prime Radiant is physically manifesting outside of the Prime Radiant. Like we have no idea what's really going on here. This was more of just like once the rescue mission happened, it just gave it a reason for Harry and Gale to clear the air and talk about some things before we're now back into he's alive now and there's risk to Harry again.
My only comment is that I'm glad that it was him pulling a quick one on them and that they didn't just go to Ignis.
Yeah.
And they actually ended up at Ignis Planet because we talked about that last episode. And I was just happy that that's what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you were the first one to say it, Kyle. You're like, he was told that's where he needs to go. He's totally going to pull a fast one on them, and that's where they're going, especially because he's controlling the ship. And we have their little trek, the journey with Gale and Harry, and like you said, Luke, they chat it out, they talk it out. We hear more about Yana and Harry's relationship and how she was brilliant, just like Harry, and she was basically his equal, and how he said he used to have her and he lost her.
She could read the Prime Radiant as well.
Yes. And they get to the door, and Harry's so sassy, so freaking sassy now, ever since he's back after his little 130 something year imprisonment. Yeah, he's sassy as shit. He is. So they open the door. We see the manifestation of the Prime Radiant. Gale's freaked out. She's like, "What the hell's going on here?" Harry says, "I'm leaving you behind. If I don't come back in 6 hours, roll the hell out without me." And she makes her way all the way back, which that was a pretty long ass trip that Gale took for her boy Harry. Now she gets back, and her and Sal are chatting it out. And this is what I was alluding to, where Sal is basically saying, like, you guys have your own language, you guys understand each other. And she basically says, in this moment, 6 hours are pretty much up. What would he do? She said he would get the hell out of here. So they're about to leave. And then what are these beings, Luke? I mean, I guess we don't really know anything else about them. So these big monstrous machines are underground. They fall through the sand. They're in a cavern. And obviously the machines are all around them. And I was getting a little bit of Silo here when they're drilling underground in Silo. And, they're flying around trying to escape. And then Gale notices that there's a life form. And she's like, this is a life form. This isn't Harry, the hologram. Harry. H squared, man, right? It's not H squared. It's freaking an actual being. It's a life form. Let's go get them. And the big statue with the hand sticking out, they run over to Harry. They grab him. They right at the nick of time, they save him. And she's like, holy shit, there's a freaking human version of Harry here. And Harry basically wakes up at the end of it being like, I don't know what the hell just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to get a scenario here where it's going to take us a while, where Harry's going to have like amnesia or something, and he's not going to realize, or he's not going to know how he was brought back to life as a person? Is he going to have the same memories, the same thoughts as the hologram H squared? Or will he be another version of Harry, literally? almost like a newborn Harry.
I'm gonna say he has the same memories.
Okay.
Did you notice that? I thought it was a really cool touch that when Gail is just walking through the desert, making her way to the actual tomb, whatever you want to call that, she has her footprints, and then he's standing next to
Yeah.
her, and he has no footprints. That's just a cool little touch,
Yeah, I
because
like that.
obviously he wasn't physically standing there, and he was only manifesting through the prime radiant. So, yeah, there's more to come with that. We can leave it for now because I think you guys have both already confirmed there's no guesses you want to put on the board around that storyline. We just now know where the second foundation is, and I don't think they specifically said they were going there, but you can probably guess that that's might be their next location if they didn't talk about any of it. But that'll be a conversation for the next podcast. Do any of you want to put something on the board before we walk away from this trio? No? Cool.
No, I'm good.
All right, now we're going to tackle the Trantor stuff, and this extends over to the planet that Rios is on as well. So before we get to this new character, who I think only pops up in episode 3, all of the stuff in episode 2, it just is going to really highlight Sereth and her relationship with the Emperor. And I think there's probably some stuff you guys liked, maybe some stuff you didn't like. I don't really know, but we're going to talk about it all right now because this episode starts with Day reminiscing about the past, and apparently there was an empire or a kingdom before the actual empire, which kind of makes sense because the history of the empire being around needs to be so freaking long to the point where they don't even remember that they're from Earth. So it does make sense that there was a ruler before the empire came into the age of the empire, as the mule calls it. But that aside, we have Demerzel playing her politics or Game of Thrones on right here, where she's playing Day a little bit. And the idea is that they need a general who is both just very genuine, who's good at his job, who has empathy and can get stuff done. So Demerzel needs to have Day come to the conclusion that they need to recruit this fallen general that is now a prisoner for having disobeyed Day's direct order in the past. You get some world building here. You can kind of glean that he refused to sacrifice some of the lives of his galactic empire, whatever galactic army that he was in charge of. So you can quickly find out that this guy cares about people, regardless or not if he's going to be a soldier for the Empire. This guy has now been in prison for 6 years for disobeying Day. Demerzel wants him in charge of the lead that's going to be snuffing out the Foundation, basically going on a recon mission to figure out what's really going on in the Outer Reach planets. I think this is a genius plan because I know, Kyle, you were mentioning that you didn't like the idea of them just sitting back and letting things happen and let the Outer Reach planets just grow. So this is Demerzel's actual plan. She wants to use her and Day's plan is to now use this guy, and he takes some convincing. What was it, like a minute and a half before his outrage is gone, and then he's ready to go. But some of the other little things that I picked up from this conversation is they do, and probably the next scene as well, is they do talk about the DNA having drifted away from the Cleon the First, and they use a term which is like, I'm sure, like a measurement of like a very, very small measurement of how different the DNA is from Cleon, but they also from Cleon the First, but they also say that they've basically been correcting the differences to make these versions of Day, Dusk, and Dawn pure again, but you can't change how habits form and stuff. So like they are still drifting, but at the same time, they are basically genetically identical still. So that kind of corrects some headcanon, at least for me, because I forgot that little piece. But is that what you were taking from it, or did I misrepresent what I was hearing in those conversations?
Yeah, so for the DNA stuff, I know that they were talking about how they're trying to fix the problem and how they're trying to almost train themselves to all be the same again. And like you said, Luke, the habits are changing and the habits are causing differences between the three of them and every other Cleon that comes after. I don't know. I guess I was taking it the same way as you, to be honest. I'm not fully positive on that.
Okay. I mean, we don't have to discuss it then. If I covered it enough, we can just go right into the whole dinner with Sereth and then her exploration of the genetic and I guess the cloning room, because there's some cool moments here. And I feel like you guys, I want to hear your opinions on her as a character now that you've gotten to see her interact with Day, because you guys were both throwing some board guesses of how that was going to go last podcast.
I mean, I think the most shocking thing here is that it seems to be that the plan is to knock Dawn completely out of the line of succession and for them to have
Yeah.
kids. I mean, I guess I'm shocked that that is even a possibility on the table. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're going to do about that. I mean, I can't imagine that Dawn is just like it lets that happen, but he somewhat seems to be letting it happen. But they mentioned in the earlier scene, Demerzel says, you know, they don't have any memories of assisting with the assassination plot, but it's also, I mean, they don't have a memory of, you know, a recorded memory of it, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen. Because I just like, what the heck is Dawn? I mean, is then Dawn maybe free to get married? It doesn't seem like he wants to. He doesn't have any interest in that. I mean, he just gets to be relegated as a brother. That's just like the first prince. That's kind of fucked. I mean, I like why
That's a good
why would he
title.
just sit there and learn how to do the etiquette in the same way and all that stuff? Like nothing matters now.
That's true.
And I'm surprised Demerzel is okay with this too. I understand that Demerzel has to pretty much obey, but we also know that she needs to do what's right for the Empire. And for the 1000th time, it is interesting, everybody drink, to figure out what her process is, what her code is allowing her to follow when it comes to what's best for the Empire. Is she logically and her code seeing that this is the best next thing for the Empire, so she's allowing it? Or is this going to be a scenario similar to Dawn in the previous season where she kills him and it's not an openly she's not openly going against it, but when it's time and she needs to act, she's going to act? Like, are we going to have a scenario where she kills Sereth if she needs to, gets rid of the kids if she needs to, as horrible as that sounds, like things like that? I mean, at one point, Day says they're going to fix my sterility. So, we've kind of glossed around that before. Like, could they have kids in the first place? What's the deal with that? So at this point, they can. Is she going to ever allow him to be able to? Is there going to be a scenario where they keep trying and nothing happens? We already know the deal here. Day's the big, what is it, Kyle? The big man with the big chair. And
Big dog.
the big dog with the big chair doing the big damn thing. And when it comes down to it, though, we know that past Day said, we're going to let this Dawn live. We're going to bend. He made his declaration, and Demerzel said, nah, bro, that's not good for the Empire, and went against him. So I don't know if she's humoring him now. And we also know that Day can just be gotten rid of and replaced. And maybe the next day is just going to be like, all right, I'm Day. I'm good. We're going to keep with the succession. We're not going to have kids. So this is a very weird situation. Even Sereth knows that it's a weird situation. She's ambitious. We talked about her before. We love her. I mean, I don't know if Kyle, I'm not putting words in your mouth for episodes 2 and 3, but I like her as a character. I think she's going to be a great character and continue to do so. I mean, she's antagonizing Dusk or Dawn at one point, kind of even flirting with him a little bit, but being like, yo, what's your point? Exactly what you said, Kyle. What is your point going to be? You're really okay with this? So I'm going to have kids and you're going to be down with the fact that you're just nothing now? And he says, hey, we're all one and we all agree what's best for the Empire. Obviously a canned statement from Dawn, but I can't imagine that this is how it goes.
So let me ask though, what do you think about her? Well, she also does two other things at the dinner conversation, where one, she does the classic, like, confirms her priors about the assassination attempts by getting Dawn to say, or getting Day to admit to it. And then she also kind of rehashes her family accident and what happened to put her on the throne, how everyone that was above her she wasn't supposed to be in line to ever rule of Dominion. And then a bunch of people died. And then because she even says, I wasn't trained for this. So I kind of want both your takes on what you think's going on there and how you think that'll play. And
isn't this a little Warbreaker-ish from Sanderson? Am I getting the wrong book? Where the main character was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're taking her at face value, then yeah.
Yes, I'm taking her at face value right now. But that's the thing. Yeah, like again, she's ambitious. Did she take them out? I mean, we don't know the whole story, but yeah, apparently, there's a sister that was born to be the queen. And this is what I'm saying when it's like Warbreaker, she goes through her studies to be the queen. She's basically what they do for Dawn, they're doing for this sister. The sister dies, and this girl has to take it. And Sereth is not trained. She was allowed to be someone that could just do whatever the heck she wanted. So she's not trained and ready to be the queen. She's also very inquisitive about Demerzel. She talks about Demerzel and says, "So where, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but when they go to the room with all the clones, she says, "Well, where's Demerzel's?" Because we know she apparently lives forever. And Day's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about
She has
it,
her
right?
own arrangements.
Yeah.
She has her own arrangements. Don't worry about it."
Which is
I
cool
think-
because it just reemphasizes that nobody knows that she's not biological.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's the
they?
whole thing. No, yeah, and maybe I'm okay to put a theory on the board right now, and it's tough, but I wanna do some theories, and we have a scenario where we know 150 years in the future, the age of the Empire at some point has come to an end between now and 150 years into the future. Is there a scenario where this day decides he wants successors as his children, and an inner war starts between Day, Dawn, and Dusk, and Demerzel's not able to control it? Maybe something happens where everything is destroyed, meaning like even their Cleon the First is destroyed. Like everything, the possibility of continuing the succession the way that it was supposed to go is destroyed throughout this war, this battle, this argument between the three brothers, and that's how the age comes to an end finally.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why you would clone yourself in this way and eliminate the need for offspring is eliminating any level of succession war. I mean, any
Yep.
level of questioning what the succession is. So it seems like it's a blinking red flag
Yeah,
that
and I
if we're
I
going to
really
introduce the concept of succession, and we already have obviously a competing suitor being Dawn, who we know would have support via Dusk. I mean, I can't see why that wouldn't come to a head in some way. Is it going to be like a tit for tat, like kind of clandestine battle, or is it going to balloon into like full blown? I take over
right.
this galactic sector. They hail me emperor. All that stuff.
And with Demerzel being Demerzel, at what point are you just like, you know what? I'm killing this Dusk. I'm killing this Day. I'm killing this Dawn, and we're restarting. This is bullshit. Demerzel has to be a key part of this season and what happens in the storyline, because while she's not obviously Empire, she's pulling a lot of the strings to make sure that Empire lives on, as we saw with Dawn prior. So something needs to happen to her, or maybe she comes to a realization herself, which we've been talking about for a long time, or she's actually against Empire in the first place nowadays. Yeah, one of those scenarios has to be what happens, so that if I'm correct and if it's destroyed in this way, she can't basically just reset it.
She's plotting for the downfall. But I think that Sereth it's just the perfect cover of, all this unfortunate accidents happened to me, and explains why she might not be, let's say, very mannerly and can ask questions that she actually wants to know the answer to. It's the perfect cover for acting the way that she acts.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not trained otherwise to be
yeah.
courteous and queen like,
And
but
I mean, how many answers did she get by just acting that way? I mean, so much information was
oh
even
yeah.
just in people's reactions and facial expressions. So to me, it's all calculated.
Yeah, and as we said, she's not scared, whether it's true or not, and whether it's an act or not, when it comes to her story, she's not scared to ask these questions. She's not scared of Empire. She's basically knows that, in her opinion, Empire is dwindling. And it's weird to say dwindling when Empire, meaning the actual Empire, is so huge. But it is getting smaller, and she is calling that out. And she knows that technically they are losing power. She's not scared because she knows that she's needed, at least to this day. In this day's eyes, she's needed.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to make sure she has the power because of that.
Yeah, and the only other thing I really took away from these scenes, which are very little things, was the cool call out for the memory transfers that are constantly happening to the clones that hold off on sending the death data, but giving every other piece of their memories just constantly transferring to them, which explains some of the world building of the clones. And then Day also confirms that if him and Sareth were to have a kid, it's going to be in the lab. Like they're not actually going to have her get pregnant. They'll just mix and match and figure it out that way. Because
Well, he did say that they could do that, right? It's just that they won't because they will want it to be the perfect successor, right? Then wasn't he
Yeah.
saying something along the lines of like we can mix and match and make sure that the DNA and everything is the best possible scenario.
Yeah, and they're gonna bang.
Oh, yeah, they are. Bangity bang's happening. I mean, and I even took it as not even him necessarily saying it won't be that way. I took it as him saying, like, we have the options to be like, okay, you can have my baby, or we could do it in a lab to make sure it's the perfect successor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's take it through the rest of the Trantor buckets, which is mostly just everything that happens in episode 3. And this is all going to be centered around our new character, Bel Rios, the general that I mentioned earlier. And I'm going to throw it over to you, Kyle. Just give me your opinions on what went down on his release and his bargaining he did with Demerzel on that crazy prison planet, which is the definition of just hardcore slavery for anybody that goes against the Empire, all the way through the revelation that they lied to him about his husband being alive and still being a servant in the Empire and bringing him back. And then they had that mind game of Day versus Rios before he ends up accepting the position and kicks off his jump drive to going to the outer planets.
I mean, I think that this character archetype is something that makes a lot of sense. You know, if you're familiar at all with Roman history, especially the history of the empire itself, you know, in times of, let's say, fractured relations, there's people noticing weakness and things like that. You know, the ultimate risk to any emperor is a well-loved and well-connected general. You know, if you've seen the movie Gladiator itself, I mean, that's essentially the plot line of the movie Gladiator. So I think it works really well. I'm very intrigued with it. This guy seems awesome.
Yeah.
You know, he seems like a great character. It seems, again, like almost all of the interactions that he has have the ability to either explain something about him or to world build or to have, you know, some double entendres or, you know, something simmering underneath it. Because Jimmy, like you're saying, with this, let's say, civil war potential here, you know, a lot of what we've learned from Bel Rios in this episode was that I'm an empire guy. You know what I mean? Like, I do what I do, not necessarily for the dude that's up there because I don't like that guy, but like I swore an oath to empire and like these people. What does that look like when there's potentially two of them?
Yeah.
You know, like they all call themselves empire. That would be an interesting way to bring that into, let's say, a state of conflict of who did he swear the oath to?
Right. We're all,
you know,
empire.
If it's Dawn and Dusk kind of fracturing and they represent kind of like the Cleonic dynasty, while Day is kind of, you know, this new age. If it becomes to a split, that's just an interesting situation to put a, let's say, morally upstanding character like him into.
Yeah.
What kind of decision does he make in that situation. Also, again, like how if he finds out maybe about the Demerzel thing again, because we're kind of learning that he is just this morally upright, like he has very strong convictions. He is a very understood in himself moral compass, doesn't really want to waver from that at all, even if it means dying. He doesn't really care at that point. It's just he will stay true to himself. There's a lot of interesting situations you could put him in that will challenge that trait of himself. And we're just kind of picking up hints and things to, in my opinion, like Roman Empire stuff all over the place. I mean, the room with all of the old Cleons is the Principium, and the Roman Empire started with the concept of not an emperor but a princeps, which is the first citizen of the Republic, first among equals. And then we're getting now into this question of succession as well, and the civil wars within the empire of which son is the better son, and like, is it the one that the emperor chooses, or can it be the person that the armies choose? I mean, it really comes down to, there's a lot of history around the idea of the emperor could have picked his own successor, but once we kill the emperor, it's really the army that picks who the next emperor is, and sometimes they'll sell themselves to whoever is the highest bidder. And it seems like Belrios is a guy that has the army. I mean, at the very least, the 20th Fleet they seem unbelievably loyal to him, more so than they would ever seem today to Dawn to Dusk. So there's just all of these interesting aspects that are just simmering around on Trantor that it feels like this season will have no choice but to bring to light, especially because of the urgency of what's happening around all of them as well. It's not really like they have the chance to like take it slow and play it by ear, because we're hurtling towards confrontation with the Foundation. That's inevitable. And we know that Sereth has plans. I mean, we're anticipating she has plans that'll probably accelerate some timelines as well. So it's just the next, even 2 episodes, it feels like a lot will change. 2 episodes after that, it seems a lot will change. By the end of the season, it seems like the Empire itself might be unrecognizable.
I'll also point out that he might be Rios might be the first character on screen that went toe to toe with Day and actually probably got the best of him, even though Day in his head probably was like, oh, it was all according to plan. In that conversation, you could tell who was really hitting the punches. And then everything changes when he brings in his husband, Glawen, I think is how it's pronounced, because that's the clear blackmail that the Empire has over him to control him and get him to do whatever they really want. And that all comes out in this conversation with Day. He's like, if you don't do what I'm saying, like, he's going to be killed. You're going to have to live with this decision. But just a lot's going on here. So, Jimmy, how about you? What's your take on this new character, and specifically all the stuff that happens after he returns back to Trantor?
I love Bell right now, and Kyle nailed it with everything that can be changed and everything that he can affect being a part of this storyline here. Having the Galactic Fleet, when he shows up at his jump ship and you can see everybody just loves him and is ready to obey because he's the commander, he's the leader, and not obey because I have the power, obey because he has the power, but they also love him and believe in him. And to the point of what you were saying, Kyle, about who he is as a person, and Luke, you were saying this too, where he was protecting people and he disobeyed Day because he didn't want to unnecessarily risk the lives of many, many, many people. Demerzel says this too, and Day, knows this is the truth, but, Bell disobeyed him, but got a plus result out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was able to get a plus result out of it. And the worst thing he could have done was get the plus result out of it, because not only did he disobey Day, but he proved that Day was wrong and he was right. And that he could make a decision against what Day says and still get a plus result out of it. And, that's something that, of course, if he disobeyed Day and didn't get the plus result, he probably would have died and Day would have been like, ha ha ha. But if he would have survived that somehow, I bet the punishment wouldn't have been as bad, and the hurt in Day's heart wouldn't have been as bad because again, Bell was
The
right, and
pride
Bell,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a pride thing. And then we have him on the planet where he is, like you said, basically a slave at this point, and he's negotiating his return to the Galactic Fleet, and he says, "I want my crew. I want them back. I want them saved. I want them on with me." And she says, "We're not going to do that." But he does go to bat and he makes sure that they get something out of it when a
Mhm.
lot of people would have just been like, "Thank God, let me get the hell out of here," not even thinking twice. He's
Yeah.
making sure his people, his crew are benefiting because they're obviously there because of his decision, and he wants to take care of them and make sure that they're okay as they can be. And also, I just gotta say, he's handsome as hell when he shaves the beard and he cuts the hair. He's handsome as hell. But the scene between him and Day was electric. The two of them going back and forth, and what you were saying, Kyle, he knows what he thinks is right. He swore an oath to the Empire, not necessarily this day, but he swore an oath to the Empire itself. And when Day is testing him, he's going to tell Day, "Listen, you tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. Okay? My loyalty is what my choice is going to be here." And he says, "Okay, well, what if the other choice is that I'm going to kill your husband?" And he says, "Well, it would suck, but obviously I thought he's been dead for the past 6 years anyway. I have my decision, and this is what's made." And then, Demerzel goes to him later, meeting Day, and says, "Did he say the right thing? Did he make the right choice?" And Day always has some kind of answer to make it seem like, "Oh, he did what I thought he would," or
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's so petty about that stuff. But I just want to bring up one of the things that I noticed in this conversation. And I think it's just worth saying because this is a new day, technically. I guess he doesn't believe in Harry's predictions, but he believes in the power that they're causing because that's part of this, right? He wants the general to go and snuff out and figure out what's really going on with the Foundation because he doesn't actually believe in psychohistory anymore. That's like his main goal for this, and I think that's just going to play out for Rios' storyline. But once Rios enters his galactic fleet and like he steps up onto the ship, the thing I really wanted to point out, because it just happened so quickly, but it's such a subtle world building piece here where you see the spacers talking to him, the
yeah,
spacer, and says like, "Oh, like you didn't bring me any of whatever it is." You find out right here, or it's implied that the species is being blackmailed as a whole by the Empire to do their bidding because of some resource that the Empire has. I'm trying to be very non-specific because we don't have the information yet, but if you guys have any thoughts on that, totally bring it up now. But it makes the spacers more important than what you guys probably thought of as just like an appendage or just a appliance of like the Empire. Like they're actually there's deeper lore there that might come up to play.
I guess it's interesting in that they weren't like they are a species. It felt like they were
yeah.
before that kind of an invention of the Empire.
That's exactly what I was going to say and ask. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I thought that there was something that was said where they're like augmented humans. And in my opinion, I thought it was that they were saying like Empire created them or somebody created them, even if it was before Empire, as a way to be able to jump.
So they were biologically engineered for the sole purpose of helping the jumps. But with that in mind, even if you create a species, a sentient species that can handle that, they have all the leverage unless you have something over them, which is where this comes into play. Because otherwise,
Right.
why would they ever listen to the Empire? They'd be like, "You need us. We don't need you." So there needed to be some sort of blackmail going on.
They're all
Yeah,
addicted to drugs.
If they're created and you know that you can clone Cleon the First, can you create this species of spacers to be exactly what you want them to be? A tool, again, for lack of a better term, to help you with your jump ships and your jumping, but then you create them with some kind of deficiency that you can control to make sure that they will obey you.
That's what you would do, right, Jimmy?
Hey, I'm Dawn, bro. You're Day. Okay,
Dude,
I
your
don't know
time's
what I would do.
Yeah, but you
I'm
were
only doing-
Dusk.
Nah, dude, I'm Dawn. I'm only doing what you teach me, Kyle. Okay? If I do
Interesting.
anything bad, it's because you're teaching me it. Okay? Our genetics have changed. I'm my own man now. But when I'm dead next
Interesting.
season, man, I'm gonna be handsome as hell. I'm gonna be ready to go.
So you're clearly not learning your lessons. You're growing up to be weak right now.
I'm a weak dawn, man.
We need Demerzel to teach you a lesson.
Yeah. I will say, and I can't help but harp on this, and it's crazy. I just can't imagine. It is unbelievable to me that this is being allowed by anybody and not outwardly like hell. What the hell is going on when it comes to this succession with Day wanting to get married and the kids? I mean, Kyle perfectly laid it all out. And we all know that the term, history repeats itself. But my goodness, I just don't understand how this isn't a thing where they're just like, yo, just take this day out. This is dumb and put in the new day. This is unbelievable. We can't have him be thinking this. Yeah,
we
we'll
will.
see. But Bell's a great character. I'm excited to see how this goes. I like the relationship between him and his husband. And I'm guessing his husband is just he is a member of the fleet. He was in the suit, so it looks
Yep.
like he's one of the crew members. Don't know his rank or anything like that. With their manipulation tactics, they have Bell being told that his husband's dead for 6 years, and then they have the husband being told that at any point they will kill Bell if he doesn't follow their orders. So they're just, I mean, we know this. We know this all about Empire. They're manipulative as hell.
I mean, it's just a narrative device for him. It seems like more than
Yeah,
anything.
right.
At this point, he doesn't seem like an actual, let's say, I guess, actualized character. He's there, A, for the Empire's leverage sense, and then B, for his sense of kind of testing his morals in all the situations, because the husband seems to just want to run away.
And, as we're ending these scenes, it's just, we say it every episode, I feel like, but the CGI, the visuals are just unbelievable, especially when they pan out on the jump ship and they show the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So freaking cool, man.
The
So
rings
cool.
look
And
good when you zoom up on them too. The new rings.
And I am very glad we talked about the spacer that was in that scene, because I had the exact question Kyle did when the conversations were being had, because I assumed that the spacers were, again, for lack of a better term, created by the Empire and not a species that existed beforehand. But I understand what you meant there, Luke. Like, they are creating a species, and there's something that the Empire has over them that allows them to control this species.
Yeah.
Bell's husband is going to join the Foundation.
Okay.
On the
Bell
board.
himself. Can Bell himself join the Foundation? What do you think? What do you do?
I'm
go?
not there yet.
Okay.
We can come back to that point when we get into this terminus, because there's the single line that happens in this storyline that makes me think that it's possible, but we'll see.
I thought you were going to hate him because he said he's not a revolutionary.
No, I just enjoy the role that he has to play. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, will that be tested?
True.
Yeah, that'll
Very
be
true.
tested, Kyle. Kyle, you'll make sure it's tested. And the last thing I want to say about this current day that we have, and Luke, you were bringing up psychohistory and him not believing in psychohistory anymore. I think the big thing now is that they're taking it like, or at least me as a viewer, as I'm watching it, I'm seeing it like Day is hearing and seeing these plans come to fruition, or Demerzel is saying, "Yo, the outer rim, it's outer rim, right? Or is it out of reach?
Out of reach. That's you're mixing up.
Outer
Murderbot.
Ream.
What's outer rim?
That's your corporation rim is Murderbot.
Oh yeah. Isn't outer rim something too though? Like I think it's in like a video game or another show or something. But anyway,
Sounds super old.
Yeah. I'm young, dude. So, but he's hearing about the plans and the things coming to fruition in the outer reach, and he's saying, again, I'm taking it this way. In his head, is he saying, Harry Seldon may have been a bullshitter who was just trying to allow time for them to start a war against us and take over and try to defeat the Empire. So, like you're saying, Luke, he may be saying, yeah, psychohistory is bullshit, but now we allowed them to start a war with us almost.
Mm-hmm.
The Outer Rim is Star Wars, Jimmy.
Okay, there you go.
We know you're a big Wookiee head, so Not a surprise.
It's funny
there.
because I don't even know Star Wars that well.
Well, you know the Outer Rim. That's a start. You're working your way out, and then you just got to work your way in, and then you learn.
Outer Rim territories in Wikipedia.
All right, you guys
I'm
ready to
good,
move
man.
on?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Let's go through our terminus or terminus adjacent scenes here. And it actually starts off on a new planet called Sowena, which is also part of the Outer Reach planets. And this is where we're going to meet two new characters. And I can't say meet for the first time, at least one of them,
Yeah.
but we're going to get reintroduced to Brother Polly and then Brother Constant. And I just think it's hilarious that the little Polly from season 1 is the last surviving encyclopedist that is still here. He's the only living person, not counting Sal, that actually got to see the vault get opened and saw the origins of the Foundation, which is really cool. Bet you guys never would have thought that he would have just from old age just lived through that entire cryo sleep that our girls went through. But there's some cool here, but this is really just to cement home the idea of what was going to be the butterfly effect of setting up Harry as the prophet and what that was going to turn into, and which ends up being this, if you want to call it like this, magician's cult, which we later find out is really just a recruitment tool for the Foundation to keep the Outer Reach planets and everybody that they care about in on the plan. But these are our new characters, and I need to hear your guys' gut takes on Brother Constant. And then also, I guess, if you want to loop in Hober Mallow, who is going to make an appearance in this bucket as well as a new big player.
I love the name drop of Polly. I'm very happy that we got that reveal because underlying Polly was just one of those characters that, not like a hugely important character, but a memorable character. Polly had his moments, and of course, he was one of the ones that was actually name dropped or introduced himself to Harry the Prophet. So I really like that they turned Polly into a character in the future. I don't really know how that works. I don't know if he was in cryo for some point, just because he doesn't seem like he's like 150 something years old or whatever it is. But either way, it doesn't really matter. But I don't really have too much to say about the actual scenes with them being the magicians. There's a little bit of world building and character development, just explaining what's going on with Brother Constant and Brother Polly.
You get a feel for the
trickery.
resistance against the religion and the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
religious sects, which is just world building.
But yeah, I mean, the gist of it is basically, hey, we're going out into the world to recruit for the Foundation. And Polly likes to party, apparently, whether it's for good reasons or not. And Brother Constant has a nice ass medicine / needle that just purges you and you're good to go, man.
You
That's
imagine.
dangerous. Yeah, that is dangerous. But really, the big pieces come when they're asked to return to the Foundation, to Terminus.
No, I'm just glad that the magicians thing ended up being like a not very serious thing.
Yeah. We met Becky, I don't know what species
Bishop
of
Claw,
animal
something
that
like that?
is. What is it?
For some reason, the term like Bishop Claw is sticking out to me.
Yeah,
but
something
I could be way
claw.
off.
Yeah.
Becky.
Pop Claw, I think.
They get the message that they need to go back to the Terminus because the vault's reopening, and then that just opens us up to RIP to the new warden scene.
Which is bullshit, man.
It was so obvious it was gonna happen.
It was.
Like, as you get into the scene itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So obvious, but bullshit. I'm not happy with that. Why would you cast my boy just for that? And what is it? I mean, I'm sorry to say, I know you're not a huge horror fan, Kyle, and I'm not sure. Have you ever seen Scream 1 or is that just one of your blind spots because you don't have interest?
I would have to say I haven't seen it. I'm tempted to say I have, but probably lying.
Well, all I'm going to say is it's, 30 years. Wait, 30? 15? Jesus. Almost 30 years ago. So I'm allowed to give spoilers here. And the spoilers are that, Drew Barrymore is introduced and you think she's the main character and then they kill her off immediately and everyone was like, holy shit. Now it's not the same kind of thing because he's not as big as Drew Barrymore was back then, but it I guess it makes sense. It's in the moment. like you said, Kyle, I was like, oh, he's so freaking dead.
Yeah.
He's so dead. And I was reluctant to say it because I wanted him to stay around. Love that guy.
So let me just lay this out because we do learn some things here as they're discussing what the plan is with the vault reopening. We get the name drop that the cult is called the Church of the Galactic Spirit, and they're just a recruitment farm for the Outer Reach planets, which we already talked about. We meet Cermak, who is the director of the Foundation. This is Brother Constance's dad, just the Lewis replacement. He's the leader of the Foundation now, and then our warden's name is Warden Yeager, right? Where I think it's Jaeger, which shout out to Attack on Titan if that's how it's going to be, but just spelled a little bit differently. But yeah, this scene again, when it was happening, I was like, God damn, this is so sad because this warden, he seemed to genuinely respect the prophet of Harry and like cared about the Foundation, but he goes up there and he just gets absolutely destroyed. But then it ends in this like epic moment where we don't know what's causing it. Maybe it's the biological vault of Harry himself that writes on the vault saying "Get Hober Mallow" before that's as he's dying because he's also repeating that over and over and over.
Let me get that it's the mule doing that, sending that message.
Okay.
Kyle, is there anybody that we've been introduced to? Like we see the Vision and we see the mule and he's wearing like glasses and everything. Is there anybody that it could be that we've been introduced to, or is this just a character we don't know? Like, can you see somebody progressing to become the mule?
Polly.
What was Sal's Boothang's name? Season
Hugo.
1.
Oh, Hugo, which by the way, no Hugo. You know, we were talking about, we saw Polly, we've seen obviously Sal and Gail with their cryo sleep and everything. No Hugo in episodes 2 and 3, pissing me off. We want Hugo back. There's got to be a way that Hugo is in some cryo sleep waiting for Sal. He loves her. He needs to come back. But Hugo would be, that'd be pretty cray.
That's just the only guess I have because he was a traitor and, you know, you could say that he was a mule of like carrying things place to place. And that could be his like alias when he turns dark.
And not that it matters, I guess, but if we're going to say something about the fact that his eyes change, is there a reason why he would want to cover that? And that's why he wears glasses? Or is that just part of like a costume for the character? Who knows? So, but
Brother
I kind of like Hugo.
Bespin, by the way, because you saw her blue eyes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And so that would also mean her father, or would that mean maybe the mother? Did he have blue eyes? Yeah.
I can't remember.
So I had no idea what was going to happen right here at the vault because I guess I can rewind it a little bit because as much as I like the warden and I like the actor, he didn't have all positive traits, right? He definitely was Sal-like in a way where I am the warden. I am here to make sure that we're doing what's necessary for the Foundation, and I'm here to protect Terminus and the Foundation. But pretty much the entire council, for lack of a better term, very much so looks down on Polly, doesn't really give a shit about Polly. They basically think of Polly as like a mascot.
Like a drunk too.
Yeah, right. You know, you are the person that saw Harry, so we allow you to be our little mascot that will go in and recruit, basically. And, you know, Polly thinks that he should be the one to speak with Harry. And they're just like pretty much laughing at it. And Polly's obviously pissed off. And the warden here is like, all right, this is the plan. Harry's going to walk out and I'm going to say, hey, man, can I talk to you in the kitchen for a second? Little Family Guy for you. But he's just like, yo, I'm going to have a little one-on-one with Harry, this prophet being. I'm going to say, hey, man, come talk to me on the side and we're going to talk this out. I didn't know exactly what I thought was going to happen, but I did find it weird that the vault was opening over time slowly and not a similar scenario to what happened in season 1 with Sal, where Sal used the Prime Radiant and then it pretty much activated it. As it gets closer and closer with the warden giving his freaking speech and all that. I didn't know exactly what I thought was going to happen, but I knew he was going to die. I thought he was going to decide to like walk into it and it was going to burn him up as he walked in to it, something along those lines. But this is very, damn it, I'm going to say it, very interesting because Harry hasn't shown his face for however long. Harry maybe activated the vault for the second crisis, or the vault automatically activated when the second crisis is supposed to be coming, which the warden obviously does call out in the first episode. He says this does mean war, even though we get to see Harry. Harry doesn't show up. So Kyle, is it the mule controlling the vault in some way, but it's also saying get Hober Mallow, and we know that the second crisis is against the Empire. So
Yeah, I
if
mean that's
the
the mule needs all that to happen. He's third party, and that's third party. You got to have two parties, and Hober Mallow is the way that levels the playing field enough for the Foundation to be able to kind of enter the arena against the Empire, which then creates the opportunity for the mule to do what he has to do. So I'm, like I said, my money is on the fact that this is the mule reaching back into time.
I like that. He's against Foundation, of course, because he wants to take out the second Foundation, but he needs the Empire to go first.
I mean, who's to say also, now that we're saying this, maybe he's part of the first Foundation, the mule.
The mule could be one of the people in the first Foundation. Okay.
Because we have, Polly says it in this moment in the boardroom of when like they're kind of ignoring him and all this stuff. And he was like, I mean, essentially, what is the difference between you guys and the Empire? He looks around. He's like, looking kind of Trantorish in this bitch.
Yeah, right.
Of like, what's going on here, fellas? Like, I thought we were acting and moving a certain way, but I'm kind of surprised at what I'm seeing and hearing. And I mean, part of what we know Harry's plan was to actually not necessarily create like a bunch of hermits that just collect knowledge. He intended things to be more of this revolutionary force to overthrow and replace the Empire. So they're actually low key fulfilling that in a way without actually having that direction from Harry, it seems. But that just creates an interesting concept of like the Foundation's perspective at this point of like looking at the Empire being like, we're just going to do what you guys are doing, but we're going to be better at it because we're free. We're more democratic. We're more XYZ. Yeah. And I could see that being a vehicle that, down the line, someone could hijack that and act maybe similarly to the mule. Or again, is this just kind of the second crisis happens and then kind of the fallout from that creates some type of conditions that then essentially create the mule within the concept still of the Foundation. We had Farah, who we learned in season 1 was really just a product of the Empire's actions. It's not crazy to think that, we could have a similar situation and that is it that we've become what we tried to fight and that we then kind of create a mule that can exist within the Foundation? Is a history going to repeat itself in that sense? I don't really know. I think that's possible. I don't know how much I believe that actually, but maybe the conflict itself creates the mule in a way that makes him hate the Foundation and the Empire, and he kind of gets his own thing going on.
It would track too, because the second Foundation's purpose is to be a blind spot for the first Foundation, which is what the mule was looking for. So that would track.
So literally, the first Foundation could go rogue under the mule over time, and actually
part of Harry's plan.
It's introducing us to this concept of the Foundation is kind of just becoming the Empire, just on a smaller scale. It's acting the same exact way. All of the religious belief, like it's pretty much using Polly, like they said, as recruitment. Everything seems to be very militarily focused. It's all about power and strength, which again makes sense if you're actually, even if you are revolutionary with the right ideals, let's say, quote unquote, drink,
baby.
That like you need at some level, you need power, you need physical might and things like that. But it's also then creates this space for someone to co-opt that kind of movement for their own, ends and things like that. Again, because we don't know exactly the way that the second crisis is going to manifest. We don't really know what the fallout from it is going to be and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the second crisis could be multiple parts. It could be, that Bell shows up in the Outer Reach and sees that, they are building and they have it's a little Trantor up in this biatch on Terminus, and he reports back to Empire, and Empire decides, okay, it's time for war. But then at the same exact time, we have the Hober Mallow prophecy going on. We have maybe a mule being created in Foundation 1. We have the inner turmoil happening at the same exact time between the 3 days. The 3 Cleons. So, they may declare war against Foundation in the Outer Reach. And hey, maybe the reason Foundation 1 and the Outer Reach can even be something that is living up to the Empire and actually being formidable to the Empire is because the 3 Cleons are just not working out, the 3 of them, and they are going to destroy themselves from within.
Yeah, and that line too that Polly says of, to paraphrase, it's looking like pretty Trantory up in this bitch, is that also was kind of what I was talking about with the Bell line, where like I could see him being confronted with that situation of like, they kind of got a good thing going on here, man. Like it's structure, they care about people, all of those things. Like maybe this is like, if I had known, that this was going on, like these are some people that I could have sworn my oath to. Instead, the Empire that I swore my oath to is kind of dead, and this is kind of its natural moralistic successor that like I'm gonna hitch my wagon to.
We need Bell to die and then be brought back to life so that his oath that he swore, just like Jon Snow, he fulfilled it.
That.
And now,
yeah, and then he's the captain of the Invictus. He seems like a commander or an
that would be
admiral worthy of
sweet.
the Invictus. Yeah,
Hugo just like says, "Yeah, listen, bro, you're the
I'm
man.
the mule now.
I'm gonna
boss.
give you the Invictus. I'm the mule."
Yeah. Pop him in the cryopod and just ship him off so he can bide his time to be the mule.
All right,
There's
let's
gotta
take
be.
it home.
I mean, yeah, take it home, Luke. But I say you brought it up, Kyle, and I was gonna bring it up. I do feel like there's got to be more to Hugo. Whether he's the mule, I don't freaking know. But I'm just saying, it would hurt. And I know. I mean, listen. We've had plenty of characters that just had to disappear because time goes by. But I like Hugo. We'll see.
Keep it on the board.
I mean, yeah, keep it on the board.
Okay.
But the last thing I will say, Luke, sorry, I am going to say this. It was freaking jarring as hell with the vault having written across it, "Get Hober Mallow." To see 140, 150, whatever years in the past, Sal is there and Harry shows up and everyone sees Harry the prophet and they're like, oh, like it's freaking godlike and everything. And Sal is like, oh, this sucks. He basically didn't know who I was. Like, that sucks. But now you're waiting for all this time and you're like, here comes Harry. Here comes my boy. And instead he freaking kills, whether it's him or not, he kills the warden and just disintegrates him. And then jarringly writes, "Get Hober Mallow." These people are like, gotta be like, what the hell is this? Is this like, this is scary. It's not Prophet Harry that we've been waiting for, just coming out and saying, I'm going to save you guys.
Well, that's a perfect transition into our last bucket, if you want to even call it that, because this one's more action-packed fun, I would like to describe it as. But the Hober Mallow introduction, he is a con man. Polly has a history with him. He doesn't really like him. This guy is described as somebody who just loves the challenge. He likes just he likes just getting one over on people, and you get that whole entire message of his personality in this, what I think is just a really fun heist scene that happens on the planet Coral. It looks like a cool Star Wars planet. Again, I just constantly keep bringing it up, but every planet is so distinct that I love that they keep staying with that theme. But this is a pretty developed planet, I would say. It looks like they have a huge army. We meet their stand-in ruler, who's just Commander Argo at this point, but We also get introduced to a new technology that is called the castling device. I love chess, so this is something that it's cool that he describes it in the way that the king and the castle can kind of switch places. Who knows how important this technology will be, but it really is there to get across the message that Hober Mallow is a confident dude. He gets shit done. He's not scared to take risks, and he has a history with Polly. All that comes across really well here, and they have this heist that ends up leading to a moment where he's now partnered up with Brother Constance and Polly, and they're going to go back to Terminus because they accomplished their mission of recruiting him from this point. Things that you guys want to bring up. I just love the Titan's prick way of killing people. I think that's a savage move. And I honestly thought that they were going to kill Argo. I couldn't remember if it actually goes through him when he does the flip, but the thing that gets brought up here about the castling device is anything outside the biological body doesn't get taken, which is why he needed to flip in and put the jewel in his mouth, because then it would get teleported with him. But just a cool moment to highlight this new character. But what do you guys think of his introduction? Any predictions? Does it feel weird that he's the one that the vault is calling to at this point? And how did you respond to his interactions with Constant and then also Polly himself?
Maybe my one complaint maybe of these two episodes, and it's not even that big of a complaint, is that this kind of felt like PHL 17 CW
different vibe
kind of TV show. Not necessarily that I wasn't enjoying it. It just felt like almost it was a different TV show than the things on Trant, or the gravitas that Lee Pace and the Bel Rios conversation. And it's it just felt like it was almost two different television shows. But I mean, the castling device feels like I can't imagine that it's not a Chekhov's gun. How can this thing not be involved in his piercing of the Empire's hide? I mean, it's incredibly overpowered. In what it can actually do. I mean, there's many different ways in which you can utilize it, but yeah, I mean, it seems like that'll play a role in some way or some form. I mean, I'm not shocked totally that it's him and in the way that he is, because again, he seems like someone that's very self-centered and that things he does are for him, and that kind of the rippling consequences be damned. And I'm not shocked that it would be he almost falls ass backwards into delivering whatever type of blow he delivers to the Empire, and that it wasn't necessarily an intentional thing. It just was does
it match your expectations as the guy who's going to pierce the Empire?
Seems expectations wise, I don't know how much I thought, but I think now that we know him, I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with what it might mean.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, Kyle. Let me ask you this question. Brother Constant and Brother Polly are wearing, well, at least we see Brother Constant is wearing something that is kind of similar to the shield that Empire wears. Not the same, but similar, right?
The aura. No, it's the same.
Okay, so it didn't really seem exactly the same, but I guess okay. So we're to assume that this technology exists outside of just for Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like in the past, however many 100 years plus.
Because you got to think. Remember when Dawn makes his escape from the palace? If he just gave that aura to that random person, and it was only in possession of the 3 Day, Dusk, and Dawn, that would have been found out pretty quickly. I think it's rare and it's still very valuable, but it's not only just limited to Day, Dusk, and Dawn.
So, Kyle, you're saying that you believe this will be used somehow to pierce the hide of the Empire, and is it so cliche and easy of me to say that if you somehow switch places with Day, you're now wearing his aura and he's no longer wearing an aura, so it leaves him vulnerable to be killed?
That sounds right.
Is there a way, again, with this inner turmoil? My theory was that they somehow destroy their means of cloning each other. So maybe at some point, as sad as it is to say, Lee Pace, he may be mortal in a way that if he dies, we won't get another Lee Pace, or we won't get another clone version. So is it possible that at some point he is the last one, and then the switch is made and he's vulnerable and he gets killed? and that's a deafening blow.
I am very reluctant to believe that Lee Pace is not like still a focal point of the story. That's what I mentioned with like I don't entirely know how it'll play a role. I think like you're saying, like the easiest connection to make would be that like we pop Day out and we kill him, but I just don't really think it'll be that simple. I think it'll play a role. Again, I'm not entirely sure of what role. Or I mean, do we just pop the old Day out of the tank? You know, we don't actually like is Demerzel gonna like, okay, we obviously need a backup plan here, fellas. Like we're gonna keep the tanks just in the basement and not tell anyone. And then we'll pop open the dog from the tank.
Is there a scenario
scene of season 2 is butt naked Lee Pace comes out dripping in the fluid out of the tank after we thought he died, and then we were on to season 3.
Is there a scenario where multiple days can exist, as in multiple dawns existed, and we're going to allow, they somehow allow a rogue Day, whether it's this one or another one, to exist in the Empire universe, etc., so that if the Empire goes down, there is still a Day that can be a character. But yeah, let me ask you this, Kyle. When the hide of the Empire is pierced, do you believe, and I think you already answered this question, do you believe Day, Dusk, or Dawn, those characters will continue in the story, or do you think that will mean the end of Lee Pace on our television screens?
I think Dawn and Dusk could probably hit the road, but I just don't think that Day and Lee Pace will.
Yeah,
then it really becomes a like the Foundation versus the Mule, and I just feel like some part of Empire still has to kind of stick around.
I mean, I think there are some crazy stories that could be told if you somehow keep Lee Pace and as Day, but he's no longer the actual Emperor. He's no longer Empire, and he's a character in the story. I think that would be pretty cool.
The last Cleon.
Yeah. Mortal.
But also, if we're talking 150 years, is it this Day?
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I don't know if I need this earring Day to be the one. I want to pick a better Day.
You don't want Kyle around?
One that I am. I want the one that I am in season 3.
You're gonna be all lonely, wimpy, no resources Day, stranded, beggar. While I go out in a blaze of glory, just probably butt naked, beating people up.
All right, I think we're ready to wrap up. Let's call it, because we are an hour 40 deep into this right now. But that was good. I feel like we got some good character introductions there. We covered a lot. I think now we can officially say all the chess pieces are placed for this season. We got 7 more left. Do you guys have any parting shots that we didn't already cover yet?
No, I just think I predicted the show in this hour and 40, so I'm interested to get into the next episodes.
I think Kyle figured it all out. He's Day. He figured it all out. The one thing I will ask you, and I don't think it was answered, when the vision was occurring, when Gale came out of the vision, Harry didn't ask where she was, right? I guess she wouldn't know that specifically. It wasn't named unless she can use her powers to know where she was. But she knows where the Second Foundation was at the time, but she, didn't know where currently that battle was happening.
Right. They didn't ask. Correct, but it seems like she could have used the same method to be able to find out, because that version of her knew, just like that version of her knew where the Foundation 2 was. So if she actually thought about it.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. So that would have been I don't know. Would that be important to know? I guess, like Harry said, you get there, final destination, you get where you need to get, I guess, unless you're purposely changing things majorly. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I'm good. That was my parting shot. Anything else from the homies?
I'm good.
All right, guys. So that was a little bit of a longer one. We were trying not to let them go this long, but hopefully you guys appreciated a little extra time with your Cleons over here. But if you like what if you like what you heard, check us out at the Core Podcast. You can go to bingetowntv.com/podcast. And if you go there, you'll see Binge Empire, Bingetown TV, the Core, our YouTube, our Discord, all of it laid out right for you. And we'll also leave it in the description to make it a little bit easier. But it's all there for you. If you want We would love it if you could subscribe. Binge Empire will very soon be covering Dexter Resurrection and Squid Game. We also have the possibility of Alien Earth coming Wednesday. We have a lot coming. Stranger Things in the fall, leading up to the 3-part. So fall, Christmas, and New Year's. A lot is coming on Binge Empire, so please hit that subscribe button. But there's a lot coming as well. This is just the beginning for Foundation. We're not even at our actual weekly coverage. So this is the appetizer. We're having a blast, but we're gonna have a lot more fun knowing that Lukey Selden doesn't know what's going on, and he's gonna be finally able to contribute in a way where he can theorize with us. But otherwise, guys, we'll see you next week. We have Murderbot as well. So for the 1,000th time, a lot going on. Once again, we are the Core Podcast, and thank you so much for listening.